Oh man. Okay, so Tyreek Hill released saves the Miami Dolphins about $30 million, which they're going to need because they're going to need to make some changes really everywhere. The question becomes, what does Miami do at the wide receiver position? They have Jalen Waddle right now, but outside of Jalen Waddle, you have to decide what you're going to do. It just, Miami feels like a mess. Miami went from being like the next team, right? Like they hire Mike McDaniels. It seems like a very weird hire at the time. Not for everybody, but for some people, it feels like a weird hire. They don't really understand why McDaniels and what he brings to the table. And then McDaniels comes into Miami and puts together a couple of winning seasons. They make the playoffs. This looks like a team that could end up making a jump to being in the conversation for Super Bowl contenders, or at least putting themselves in a position to compete for the AFC East year in and year out. They look like the next contender to the Buffalo Bills. And then it all went downhill really, really fast. Really fast. And I don't know if I completely understand why. You have to wonder, is it the fact that they not only tied themselves to Tua, but they tied themselves to Tua for a decent amount of money for a decent amount of time? So McDaniel's first season in Miami, they go 9-8, finish second in the division. They make the wild card, lose in the wild card round. Year 2 in 2023, they go 11-6. They score 496 points. They have a point differential of 105. The offense is humming. They end up losing in the wild card round. If you remember correctly, that was that frigid game. They had to go on the road to face the Kansas City Chiefs. No easy task for anybody. And then in 2024, the team kind of took a step back, especially offensively, because they went from scoring 496 points all the way to 345 points. Just an absolute drop off. Tua played in 11 games that season. They had to run with Tyler Huntley in 5 games, and they had to run with Skylar Thompson in a game as well. Clearly, that made things difficult. It made things difficult on Tyreek Hill. Jonnu Smith has a big season. Devon Achane has kind of his breakout, stays healthy. Jalen Waddle, But they take a big step back. Unfortunately. And then this year, offensively was kind of on board with what they saw the year prior. But defensively, they go from allowing 364 points last season to allowing 424 points. So their defense took a big, big step back. Still, McDaniels, it would have been his second year in the league. So I was saying some of this backwards. He throws for 4,624 yards, 14 interceptions, 29 touchdowns. That was McDaniels' best season. Comeback player of the year, finished 5th. The year prior was when he had that concussion, obviously. The year prior, his first year, 25-8. But then as seasons went on, the next 2 years, Tua only throws for 2,800 yards, 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And this past season, 2,600 yards, 20 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. It just, the growth was not there. The growth was not there with Tua. It was wildly inconsistent performances over and over and over. Now I find myself conflicted on the job that Miami is trying to move forward and do, because they've set themselves back. Tua's contract is big. So they could potentially get out from underneath his contract right now, but they're going to have a dead cap hit of $34 million. His contract in the years 2029 and 2030 have already been voided. So he becomes a restricted free agent in 2029 no matter what. The contract at that point has already been voided. The cap hit this coming season, if they retain him, will be $53 million. If they keep him in 2028, the cap hit is going to be $65 million. So at this point, Miami has a decision to make, because if you're going to stick with Tua, you're going to have to stick with him for the next 2 years, and you're going to have 16% of your cap and 19% of your cap going towards Tua over the next couple of years. 53 million, 65 million. Or you get out from underneath the deal, you have 34 million go towards his contract this season, 34 million, and then you're done with him. Miami needs to commit to the rebuild this year. You've already done that by releasing Tyreek Hill and saving yourself $30 million. Now you need to do it by releasing Tua and being done with him. It's going to cost you $34 million, but it's going to be way better than the 50 and the 60 that is going to go towards your cap over the next 2 years. And it gives Hafley an opportunity to restart this team, start your rebuild right now, and then go from there. For me, the question becomes, what is the answer at the quarterback position? Is it releasing Tua and going with Quinn Ewers? Is it releasing Tua and drafting somebody in a very weak draft class that we'll talk about in a few minutes when we talk about the combine? They released Chubb as well. Or is it going through free agency and trying to bring in a guy like Malik Willis? Because after Jalen Waddle, Cedric Wilson, Malik Washington, Taj Washington, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. At the tight end position, Darren Waller's headed to free agency. Greg Dulcich, I believe he is a free agent as well. At the quarterback position, you have Quinn Ewers. Zach Wilson is going to be a free agent. You spent a first round pick on Kenneth Grant last year as your defensive tackle. Chop Robinson was a first round pick the year before that at defensive end. I don't think Miami is in any position to look at 2026 and say to yourself, we're going to compete. That's where teams get themselves into a bind, is where I don't think they really make decisions. Teams go all in on winning, and when they have an opportunity to win, they go all in on winning, and it feels like that's what Miami did the last couple of years. But then they kind of said, no, we're going to reset with a new head coach. We spent too much money on Tua, and now it's a new head coach's responsibility to try and figure it out. And if that's the case with anytime you hire a new head coach, in my opinion, I believe you have to give that coach time to reset the franchise, similar to what Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes did in Detroit. Like, it looked like off the bat that Dan Campbell may end up being a terrible head coach based on how the first 1.5 seasons went in Detroit. But then they got to it, right? They got to it. Now they're winning more consistently. They're a playoff team potentially. Miami, I think, is going to have to do the same thing, and you're going to have to eat the Tua contract for a year. And I think the decision for Miami, personally, in my opinion, because the quarterback is not going to be in the draft for them, they're going to have to go with a free agent. And I believe the free agent should not be Malik Willis, but it should be a quarterback that you feel can bridge you 1 year to the 2027 draft class. Daniel Jones is a no for me because he's coming off that injury. Aaron Rodgers is a no for me because he's Aaron Rodgers. He's way too old. You would have like an opportunity for potentially a Russell Wilson. You could look at a Marcus Mariota. Zach Wilson, you could end up bringing him back. You could talk to a Joe Flacco. Malik Willis is going to cost too much money. Malik Willis is going to cost too much money. The quarterback that you need to get this year is a quarterback that is going to do just enough for you next season. Now, here's the thing too. Jeff Hasley, coming from Green Bay, has a connection to Malik Willis, but there's going to be other teams vying for Malik Willis based on what he did. And this is where teams potentially set themselves back even more. And that's why I'm saying that I don't believe Miami needs to invest in Malik Willis. I think Miami needs to invest in a quarterback that's not going to cost a ton of money, because if you go with Malik Willis, now you're going to have to sign him to potentially the top quarterback free agent contract on the market. That's not going to be a whole lot. And I know we've seen some decent thing from Malik Willis in his time with Green Bay, and I think he could be solid, because what if Malik Willis doesn't work out? And now you find yourself in a situation where you have to get out from underneath another quarterback contract. Bring yourself in a guy for 1 year that can help keep some of the guys around you, Achane, Waddle, competitive. Bring in another wide receiver, which I'll talk about in my video coming out on Wednesday. You have a defensive-minded head coach. Focus on that part of your team, because your defense was the worst part of your team last year. Get better on defense. And then look to not completely revamp, but look to strengthen the offense heading into 2027. I think it's something very similar to what the Chicago Bears are doing. You hired an offensive-minded head coach. What did you do in year one? You focused on the offense. Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, developing Caleb Williams. You took your offensive-minded head coach and allowed him to strengthen the area in which he is best at. But you focus on the defense for Miami, and then in year two, you do what Chicago's going to do. Chicago in year two this year through the draft is going to focus on defense. In free agency, they're going to focus on defense. And then for Miami this year, they focus on defense. Next year is where they focus on the offense. And you get yourself a quarterback through the draft, because next year's draft class for quarterback does look like, as of right now, being much stronger than what it currently is for this year.
Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headline Nation, we